Hey everyone, and welcome to Masters of Improv. And I have a treat for you today. I'm very excited about this. This is like almost a year in the making. We've been trying to get this together. So t today we've got a really amazing, like she's just grounded inspiration to me. Okay, that's what she is to me. She's a touring artist, she's a creative business leader. She is the founder and artistic director of Curious Comedy Theatre in Portland, Oregon. She's also teacher, performer, writer. She's a woman of many, many talents. And I have a lot of admiration for her, even though I don't really know her that well. But she is a consummate performer and teacher. I am very humbled and very happy to welcome the amazing Stacey Hallal!
Yeah.
There she is, people!
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Somebody had to applaud, right? With that kind of
Yeah, well,
intro.
I mean, if you're not
Thank
going to
you.
applaud for yourself, yeah, who is? That's what you got to
That's
do.
what I always say. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me, Lindsay. What lovely things to say. I was blushing in the darkness by
all
myself.
true. All
Well,
true.
very sweet.
Yes. Listen, I wanted to kind of put this interview into sort of like three thematic kind of sections. The first I wanted to speak about was just your origin story, but it's not that podcast where it's just we go in too much detail about that because people can
Sure.
go on YouTube, see Stacey like everywhere. I'm going to put some links in the description as well, so you can see more of Stacey because who could ever have too much of Stacey? All right, so
I could probably name some people, but
yeah. Yeah, but this is a nice one. We won't go
yeah,
into
yeah,
all that.
yeah.
We're just
But yeah,
say nice things. Yeah, yeah.
yes, yeah.
Okay, so let me say I had a bit of a little what can I call it? Concentrated shot of Stacey last night going on YouTube doing the whole Stacey overindulgence. But there was a really cute little podcast on there by a guy called Jason something Wits. What who was it? I'll tell you guys later when I get to that section. Anyway, Stacey told a story about a no, Stacey, it wasn't that. You know what it was? It was you doing a talk, and it seemed like it was like creative mornings or
Oh,
something like
yes,
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you did this wonderful, very well presented talk about your life, and you mentioned a little story about the Christmas tree, the dad mum Christmas tree thing.
Yes.
So, as you were talking about that, I think it was such a great metaphor for the fact that you had a sort of very risk averse father and a very sort of wild, creative mother. And guys, I'll get Stacey to relay the story slightly here, but you can go and see the full thing if you go and look it up on YouTube. It'll be in the description. But Stacey, talk to us about like just what struck me was the metaphor of that story, as in how that is kind of indicative of you as a person. I think you might have mentioned that in your speech as well, that there's those sort of two sides of you.
Yeah, for sure. They were very extreme, my parents, on risk averse and risk taker. So yeah, my mother would just kind of do whatever, and my father was the match she needed because he's very dependable, very reliable, very old school father in the best sense of those
Mm,
things, of always being there for you and being very grounded and just reliable, dependable, loving, responsible dad. But to the point, occasionally of inflexibility and
hmm.
rigid. And like anytime I asked him for anything, the answer was no. And then I'd have to go develop my argument and then come back and ask again. And he'd be like, why don't you ever take no for an answer? And I'd be like, because I'd never leave the house. And then my
And
my
also, to be fair, you didn't know you were an improviser then. And it's
no, I
yes
did
and,
not.
right? It's yes and. I
Correct,
don't have
correct.
no. What?
Definitely. And sort of trained us also like sort of I could have been a lawyer, I think, based on having to present my case to go anywhere or do anything to my father. And then my mother was completely wild, kicked out of college, and brilliant, creative, but totally, totally wild. So the quick version is, and my dad was really frugal, and my mom had no concept of money, as many wild people don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my dad got a free tree from a co-hockey dad, my brother's hockey team, who owned a tree farm, Christmas tree farm, gave my dad this tree. My dad brought it home. He was all proud, and it was kind of a sad little tree. And my mom was like, absolutely not. And my dad was like, it's free. And by the time you put decorations on it, it's going to be great. And he loved it, and he visited it, and he talked it up, and he was so excited about it. Like, there's no tree better than a free tree to my
Yeah,
father.
yeah.
But my mother instilled, like, very much like it's got to be a big old fat tree without any holes and like that nice shape. And so my dad, and this is one of my earliest memories. I'm probably 3 or 4 at this point, and my dad goes to work. My mom chops all the branches off the tree, piles them up really nicely, drags the trunk out into the back, and we had a woods behind our house, and just hucks it back there. And then loads me up, goes to a tree stand, buys a beautiful tree, gets it tied. Like, I don't know how she did this all by herself, because I was a hindrance, I'm sure, more than a help at 3 or 4 years old. Gets that tree home, puts that tree up. While that tree's kind of getting opened up, she takes all the branches she took off the first tree and makes wreaths and garland and puts it all around the house.
Wow.
And then when the kids come home, like, I remember racing, with her to try to get it all done before everyone came home from school. And then by the time everyone came home from school, the tree was ready to start decorating. So it was mostly decorated by the time my dad came home. And he was like, see, Lorna, it looks great. I told you it's a beautiful tree, Lorna. You did and look at this beautiful stuff you put up, blah, 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 And my mother never told him, and then it was like a week or two later, my dad was sitting there, looked at the tree, and he finally was like, that's not the same tree, is it?
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think what it taught, and in that talk, what I was talking about was calculated risk. So I have
Mm.
all the risk impulses that my mother had, I've inherited, but then there's my dad's voice that is always in the back of my head. So I do take risks, but they're generally
Like calculated.
calculated to the yeah
Mm.
to the highest extent that you can. And so it keeps me, hopping from stone to stone to cross a river versus just trying to run straight across blindly and falling in and getting swept away.
Yeah. The thing that stuck out about that story to me as well is just like how, like that genetic improviser is there in your mum where you're just utilizing. So you got the old tree, it looks like shit, whatever. How can I yes and it, right? But cut off those branches and create something new, while also having the aesthetic sensibility to go, the tree's not quite, let's just have a, no, let's just use, so that utilization, like almost for me in that story was like, what a natural sort of improv thing to do. So you're not completely throwing out the offer.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah. And
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
like, yeah, and my dad was trying to control the offer and where it went, and my
Yes.
mom my mom yes-anded it and said, "Yeah, we don't have a lot of money. Let's not just throw it away and get a new one." But he really, and I remember how impressed he was when he came home and he saw the garland and the wreaths, and they were
Mm,
stunning. I'm sure she's just so incredibly artistic. So yeah, it wasn't a story of like waste and abundance and overindulgence either, right? She yes-anded
no.
the frugality while while converting the offer into something other than the main tree. That's great. I'd
Yes.
never thought about it that way, Lindsay. I love that. That's
Yes.
beautiful.
And I'm going right off script now because it's reminded me of something else. This is what we do in improv, people. That reminds me of. So it also reminds me of you told another story. Now, this is a really good podcast, guys. Go back. It's Jason. Oh my God. Frankovitz. Frankovitz. Go back. I'll put it in the description. Now, he asked a really good question to you. Basically, is there anything that you did early on in your improv career that you learned from a teacher or something that has stayed with you the whole time? And the parallels between this particular thing, the answer you gave, and this story. Really cool. So you mentioned being you've been doing it, I don't know how long you've been doing improv, but not long. And you did a physical offer in a scene where you came on with, I think your leg was dragging or something, and the person in the scene with you endowed you as a ballerina.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is brand new. Yeah, that's when I was very, very
brand new.
sparkly new. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I was mad because I
Yeah.
was like, obviously, I wasn't a ballerina. And the teacher was like, or were you a ballerina who had this
Gammy leg.
way of walking? Yeah. And I was just like, you're right. And isn't that more
Yeah.
interesting? Isn't that a more interesting ballerina than the expected one?
100%. And again, so this parallel of utilizing both offers to create
Yes.
something new. And I think that's something that stands out about you as a teacher. Being in classes with you, you are very accepting of those two opposing things. So how can we hold two opposing truths at once? Which, guys, is the answer to life. Okay, I'm just
It
saying.
is. It so
Um,
is. And that was very much like in terms of my improv origin story, right? I was a film student and
mm,
very shy, huge stage fright. Never
wow.
thought I wanted to be the person in front of everybody. I wanted to be a writer, director. But then I read this book that said, you should, if you ever want to write scripts, you should do improv. And it was Bernie Brillstein's "What Did I Do Right" is the name of the book. And so I started taking improv classes. And because I always say improvisers are either writers or performers first, and then we have to
Hmm.
learn how to be the other one.
Mm.
And I've always felt like the script was obvious. I'm like, I made this move. It was obvious the next move should have been this because I thought there was
Because
what
you're a
this one
writer.
story. Yes. So I
Yeah.
was like writing it ahead and then someone would write it in a direction that I didn't expect and I would think that they ruined it. Right. And then like, oh no, there's thousands of stories for every offer in which direction it can go. And then so because I think that was my biggest challenge, that's what's become my biggest obsession. And,
Mm.
Ruby is all about Ruby Rocket, which I play with different people everywhere. And I originally played with audience members, and I love Open Court, which is our jam. And like I've learned the most from learning to play with whatever comes your way. And that was the hardest lesson and is now the most fun thing for me
Mm.
to do.
Yeah, it's interesting how improv tends to do that. It does challenge the thing that is hardest for you, but it makes it sort of playful and fun enough that you can learn from that rather than push it away. And then, having that inherent sort of, I sort of want to say structure, but I sort of want to say intention of yes and as the fundamental sort of framework. I think it really allows people to have change without pushing against because it's already, well, it's improv. I got to, and that
But it
allows
can
us
be,
that change.
I
Yeah.
feel like it is, though, a much more challenging in a personal way art form. I
Mm.
suppose, right, that even if you want to be a great painter, you have to overcome some of your personal shortcomings. But in terms of like your social and interactive
Yeah.
shortcomings is or just like the places where you're not as strong as other places or even the shadow sides of your strengths. That's how I really like rather than a weakness, it's usually a shadow side of a strength, right?
Okay,
My
talk to me
strength,
about that. I like that.
well,
What's that?
anytime somebody is struggling with something, it's usually because they're really good at something else. So for me, like I can see a story, which a lot of people don't think that way. I
Yeah.
am in the category of performer who can see the story, which comes with a shadow side of being less open to the moment because I'm
Mm.
already forecasting what's going to come
Mm.
next
Mm.
what made me struggle with other people's offers. Other people are so great at being in the moment and so comfortable in the spotlight. For example, like if you look at somebody who's a performer first, since we've been talking about that, they may be awesome, like holding the spotlight, inventing things, and feel really confident. but then they might not be as strong at supporting their scene partner or
Mm.
supporting the story and seeing what's needed. Right. I'm really good
Yes.
at seeing what's needed, but it took me a long time to let go of that responsibility and remember to also just play with joy or play a moment or offer a surprise and not feel like doing something surprising used to feel like I was doing something cruel to a scene. Like if you're doing the mirror game,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
right? And you just move really fast so the person trying to mirror you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
keep up, right?
Yeah.
Uh like that's what it felt like to me. Like I was just dumping my scene partner. So I was always doing what I felt was needed or expected or obvious, which isn't a problem either to do that. But sometimes you also, it's
Mm.
also fun, especially when you're playing with people who really know you, really trust you. Then you have more and more freedom to do surprising and unexpected things.
Yeah, and I think you like the longer you're in improv, or especially if you have to teach it, because you kind of got to learn, I guess, the mechanics of it, and you have to sort of walk the walk because you're a teacher. Not all teachers, but if you know, in a good world, you're walking the walk, and that is something that I want to say about you. You've got that. You walk it, man. Honestly, like when you first walked into the room, into the first workshop that I did. The first thing that I thought, I've written it down so I don't fuck it up, is that you're extremely practiced. You're an extremely practiced teacher, okay? And I mean like creative practice in that sense as well. As in, here's someone who's coming in here who's not just spouting this shit, okay? She's doing this shit. Like your posture, your breathing, your relaxation, you're an extremely natural and grounded teacher and performer. Now I wanted to ask you, you've taken me off my three thieves. I'm gonna have to go now. So I did want to ask you because I'm just too excited about it now. So I feel like you're kind of natural grounded, quietly confident, but there's like a little wildness underneath that. And then that sort of makes sense when you talk about your dad and your mum and stuff, right?
Right, right.
The other thing I noticed about you too is you never lose status, which is important as a teacher, but you never push it. You never push your status. Now, I've been in a situation with a certain teacher. We ended up like at loggerheads, like fully like yeah, arguing with each other because this person who already has status, because they're an international teacher, we don't need to push that shit, needed to push it because they felt that I was, raising my status. I didn't get that at all with you. You were able to hold that status and hold the group together, but also, be flexible with your status, which is something that is an art and something that I noticed particularly with you as a teacher. And I wanted you to know that I really appreciate that.
That's awesome. That's so nice. Thank you. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that this doesn't come naturally to me, right? I was an introvert. I am an introvert. I had massive stage fright. So I think a lot of it comes from I sometimes the most natural performers aren't the best teachers because they've never had to consciously go
Mm,
through thinking about why they do what they do so well because they just do
interesting.
it. But for me, I've
Interesting. Yeah.
really had to learn the long and hard and like put hours and hours in and am still learning. And so I still feel very humble and also am not a fan of guru culture
Mm,
as teachers and
mm.
like am consciously opposed to people who want to talk and sound smart instead of be useful to their students.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so somebody once said when I did a corporate gig for Second City that they were surprised because it was a Second City corporate gig and it was important that I didn't come in. And sometimes I wonder if I should like try to bring more status. Actually, we just had auditions and we had had a corporate gig earlier the day, and so I was dressed like more formal, and then it was really cold, and it was warm in the day, so I didn't have a coat, so I put on this giant fur, like faux fur,
Yeah, yeah.
but a
Five
huge
people. Don't run in.
yes,
It's
yes,
right.
yes.
Yes.
A
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
faux fur, like full length coat while I was waiting for during my downtime. And people kept walking in and being like, "Oh my God, you should totally wear that when people come into the audition." And I was like, okay, like let me push them. And then I got too hot and took it off. And then the next couple days later, we had another audition, and I realized like my fly was down the entire time. And I was like, perfect example of my way through life is like, I don't know. I think there are people who, I think of their guardian angels as like protecting them from other people and from accidents and things. And I think I have some like guardian angels who protect me from ever thinking too high of myself. There will be like, if I'm ever like, oh, I'm so proud of that, I will immediately do something that will correct myself. So
Yeah.
that's the greater spiritual reason that I don't carry myself with too much status, because somebody's going to humble me, or my inner guardian angels are going to stop me from thinking, probably to a fault, too much of myself. But yeah, I've done it a long time. And I would say on another side of that, like the knowledge that I have now and the skills that I have now, were definitely hard fought in that sense that I started off as very introverted and scared and all of that. Also hard fought in that I came up in a super male dominated improv
Mm.
world, and also was in animation and marketing, which are also both super male dominated fields in terms of the creative side, at least in marketing, right? The women can be the producers, but the men are the creative geniuses. 3% of creative directors in advertising in the US are women. So
What?
yeah, I would hope it's
Wow.
different now, but that was a statistic not too long ago. So
Wow.
it's also been like really hard fought in the sense of like having to earn respect and be respected in a room, and I've just been doing it for so long that I get very tired of attempts to diminish me, but I recognize them now very quickly, and they don't, I can handle them more quickly and more easily because I have for so long. But it's hilarious how quickly you start to see it. Like I take my dog to agility classes. Do you guys have agility?
Agility.
Like,
Okay.
yeah,
Right.
so he does like jumps and tunnels and
Oh,
like
wow.
A-frames
Cool.
and stuff. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really fun. He loves it so much. It's really cute. So we have a teacher, and I hope this isn't too left field, but it's just an example of what I'm talking about. So outside of improv entirely. So the teacher runs it. You sit on the side till it's your turn, then you go do your turn, and then you sit and you watch other people and you learn from watching the other people. And the teacher is the only one who gives anyone notes and advice,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as it should be. And she had walked us through at the beginning, showing us how to do it. And there was this man there, and he had missed it. And so he came back and he sort of asked out loud, like, do you go this way or do you go that way? So I answered, and I was like, oh, I think we go through this way. And he was like, that doesn't make any sense, and sort of dismissed it. And I'm like,
What?
and so I just
He
let it
asked,
go.
man. You
Yeah,
asked. You weren't
yeah, that's
here.
yeah, yeah. So I just let it go. And then he did it wrong. And then the teacher was like, "No, you go through this way." And so she said what I had said,
Yeah.
which I think like caused consternation that he had done it wrong, and he had done it wrong, like, and he was wrong in dismissing me. So then he got stuck and did it wrong every time, right? Because his
Uh,
his his status had been kind of double lowered,
yes.
right?
100%.
And
100%.
so I don't care, it's his
Yeah.
it's his path, it's his growth. But then I went out with my dog the final time, and he was like, from the corner, he goes, I think Archie would probably benefit from getting his commands a little bit earlier. And nobody ever gives notes to each other. And the teacher was,
Exactly. Yeah,
first of
yeah.
all, she was very
Status.
taken aback because she was like,
Yeah.
"What's happening?" And it was
Yeah.
just hilarious. And it's like like that is the kind of stuff like that we see all of the
Mm-hmm.
time. And now I don't get ruffled by it or thrown by it, and I can just kind of accept it and then like move on with as much finesse as I can conjure, to not
But that's
disrupt
the
like the
thing.
whole class.
That's the true high status, though, that you are unflappable. That's
So, well,
true high
thank you.
status. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that these idiots don't get. They're trying to get that status back by saying that about the dog, whatever. And it's kind of like,
Yeah, yeah.
no, no,
And
it's sort of like being unflappable and having decorum and being polite and all that. That makes you truly, properly, groundedly high status.
well, and I think it's partly being 55 and I've run a theater, right, for 18. This is
Yeah.
my 18th year running a theater. And like, yeah, after a while, I talked to a guy who runs this animation studio, actually is kind of the chief operating officer. And he and I were sharing a lot of post-pandemic drama just was off the charts post-pandemic as everyone was finally
Mm,
feeling their feelings as we were being let out from our
yeah.
lockdown. And he goes, someone could fall down and be choking next to me and I would not freak out at this point. Like it's
Yeah.
just so, in running a theater, even more opportunities. And so I at this point, and people it's there someone once asked me what's the most surprising thing of running a theater. And the answer surprised me when I said it, which was like getting to see both extremes of humanity. You get to see like the best of people and improv teaching people how to come together and how to be united and how to navigate our differences and joy and laughter. But then there's this darker side of any community where people will
Mm,
just lash out
mm,
at you because of whatever's going on for them, and
mm,
you're
mm,
an easy, safe target for them. And people project their stuff on you, and so at a certain point you have to just kind of be like, okay, I know who I am, I know what my intentions are, I know I'm loved. I have built up a wonderful community of friends. I have a lovely family that supports me and loves me, and that's all I can do is be who I am, and I'll own my mistakes when I feel I have made them. That it doesn't mean I'm a horrible person that I make mistakes. And I also am not under any delusion that I don't make mistakes. But I kind of know who I am enough that I can tell the difference between projections and status
mm.
grabs
Yeah.
and, and between like, oh man, I feel shame because I said or did something that I didn't mean to do, and that had an effect that I wish it hadn't had.
Mm. Yeah. So just the fact that you're just saying all that to me, like that shows. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was
That's
picking up on, that this person fucking knows their shit. Like as in, as in the finer grained dynamics and the discernment that it takes to be a good teacher,
Well, thank you,
basically.
Lindsay. That's so
Yeah.
nice. It's very, very nice.
Oh, well,
Very
thank
sweet of you
you
to
for
say.
being a great teacher.
Well, it means a
Um,
lot to me.
Now that I'm just right off target, so I'm gonna look at my notes, guys, and
Sure. We'll go back and catch up on what we skipped.
yes, of course we don't have to do that completely, because I want it to go there naturally because it's improv, guys, even though there's some notes here. Right, so I guess we're in this section now of what I got out of the workshop, so I'm just gonna flow with that.
Yeah, yeah, let me hear it.
And sort of what I took out of the workshops that I did while you were on the other side of the world in Australia, in Brisbane and the Gold Coast, just for context for everybody else. Now, there were just a couple of things that stood out. Two things I wanted to ask you, which were actual exercises you did. I just want to ask you the thinking behind that. But the first thing that was really great for me was when I started doing improv, I was in the sort of Keith Johnstone sort of school, like that's sort of how I came through. And I spent a lot of time, that's why status and all that stuff, I know a lot about that stuff. But when it came to the game of the scene, I was like, and so I ended up, through the luxury of online, getting to learn how to do game of the scene, Harold and all that stuff from like Will Hines and Jim Woods and people like that. And when I first did my first Harold, uh, IRL and online, I was like, I'm the shittest improviser in the world because it was like so different to like John Stonian or whatever. And there's this whole element of sort of group mind that happens like in a Howard, especially with like group games and things like that. And we were doing something in the workshop. I can't remember the details of it, but I basically asked you a question and I said to you something like, my mind doesn't seem to work the same way as the majority of people. You know, like I remember doing a Harold where they said, "I'll put up your hand with the first unusual thing," and everyone's put up their hand. I'm like, what? And then I've put up my hand and nobody else has because I've seen something different that's unusual. And when we talk about group mind, we're talking about that synthesizing, coming together, being on the same page. And my question to you at the time was, well, what happens when you're the outlier? Like you're the person that's like not, able to sort of think the same way as everyone else. You did use an example of a player that you used to play with that you
I
you
knew
said
it.
was,
Yeah. I'm like, I knew it.
yeah,
I know what I said. I talked about Nick Vatterott.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Nick Vatterott. And as we're recommending people check out things on YouTube, watch Nick Vatterott on Conan O'Brien, and you will get just an idea of how wild he is of a thinker and how original and how creative. You've never seen a late night set, anything like it. Specifically, look for the one where he uses a set list. But he just somebody told me in one of my classes, I was in Chicago and I was on a team with him at the time, and somebody said, find somebody who plays very differently from you and see what you can learn from them, which
right.
was fantastic advice. And not only is Nick's brain different, but like he's one of those like little guys who can jump straight up onto a table from
Oh,
standing,
wow.
just like
Yeah.
just defies gravity, and but also just had this massively awesome creative mind. And it was just like what you said, like we would hear a story and a bunch of us, like we'd hear the story about a stolen car and something in the glove box, and we would all think about the thing that was on the glove box, and Nick would want to explore where the car ended up. This is just as close to what I can remember of the example.
Yeah.
But once I started playing with Nick enough, I could start to follow his patterns and like kind
Interesting.
of predict where Nick might go. And so he gave me the gift of adding a whole new way of thinking to my abilities, right? And like, so thinking like Nick was super fun because it expanded and made me think of more unexpected things, but then also made me a better teammate for him and being able to
Mm,
support and guess where he might be going when he made an initiation and I went out to join him. I could be better prepared for where he might take us in
mm,
terms of the game or the story. So, to me, having that person who doesn't think like everyone else is a gift to the team.
mm.
Because if we're all thinking the same, then we're not all going to grow in how we can think. And so, like, and there are two teams. One is Georgia Pacific, which Joe Bill was on, and I wish I could remember the other one. But there's two teams that played together for years and years and years. And I remember seeing at different times each of these teams do a scene where someone was driving a car and someone was in the back seat, and they look in the rearview mirror and they react to what's happening in the back, even though they can't really see it,
Wow.
and they
Yeah.
do it to the point where you forget that that's not a real mirror.
Wow. That's
And that
insane.
to yeah, that's an example of like true group mind, right?
Yes.
There's group mind when you first meet each other and playing together,
Yeah.
but there's like this deeper group mind that you can get to when you really know each other and you're like, oh, okay. Joe Bill would go this way, but Nick Vatterott would go that way. And you don't even do it consciously after a while. You
Mm.
just see them move and know where they're going. And I love that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I remember when you said it, like it was good validation for me as well, because you were kind of as well talking about focusing on your strengths as well. So if that is your
Yes.
strength, like sort of go into that strength and d double down on that strength.
And
And be
like on
okay with
any
that too.
totally, and on an ensemble that's say doing the Herald, right? You need somebody who's good at initiating a scene, good at supporting an initiation. You need somebody who's good at initiating games. You need somebody who's good at picking up the games immediately. You need somebody who's good at story arcs. You need somebody who's good at callbacks. Like And ideally, we're all good at all of those things,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we're all going to be naturally inclined to one of those
100%.
or two of those things. And so, yeah, you're a gift, girl. If you don't think like other people, then we need more of you on every team, right?
Awesome. So is that sort of the advice you'd give someone who's in that situation as well? Like they feel like they're on the outer with the way they think? Is that kind of what would that sort of advice be if they're like, oh, I just can't seem to get where everybody is, or I can't bring myself into that group mind.
Yeah, I would also take some time and look at the makeup of the group. I think what you're explaining right now is a phenomenon that also happens to women and minority voices on
Mm-hmm.
teams a
Yep.
lot.
Yep.
So, I think making like hopefully you're on a team where if you're welcome to express that thought and that the team is open to appreciating that that's a strength and not a weakness. And like it actually happens a lot with ageism on teams as well, where
Oh,
we
I
make
agree,
like
100%.
older people all the time.
Yep.
And so instead of being like they aren't like us, and so we push them further on the outs to be like, oh, they're not like us. Yum. What is that? And what are they bringing to us? And
Mm-hmm.
how can they teach
Yeah.
me? I think that's a really important attitude that everybody should have. And it's why when I first started, my biggest growth was playing with Deanna Moffat in our group, All Jane No Dick, and we, playing with other women. So there were three of us, and then there were two of us, and we saw each other, and like playing when you're the only woman with a lot of men, especially 20 years ago, you would definitely feel like you were weaker. And then what happens is your confidence starts
Mm-hmm.
to get
Yep.
hurt, and you think, oh, that wasn't a good move that I made. But it just wasn't seen. And like men tend to be less observant of nonverbal initiations.
100%.
And yeah, and so, and again, this is just tendencies, but so women will frequently make a move that even the audience will see, and then the men will miss it and walk right over it, and then the woman like sees that as a rejection or feels that as like, oh, that must not have been a good move, and then starts to lose confidence, and then the more you lose confidence, the less you make moves and the less fun it all becomes, and then women quit, right? So that's a huge obstacle because women, my whole history, there have been more women in our classes than
Mm-hmm.
men, but men stay. So another
Yes.
example of that is um, uh, at a fringe festival in Edmonton. They do this. They get all the people who are improvisers and comedians, and you're invited. They invite people to write for this late night show that they do every night. And they do a late night talk show and they interview some of the performers and help promote their shows. And it's super fun, always sold out, midnight show. So they invite people to come and you get to go early and they get a suggestion from the audience and you you just crank out monologue jokes, crank them out, crank them out,
Right.
crank them out. And you write them on these index cards and you throw them in the middle. And then the head writer takes them and you go somewhere quiet and he reads them, and if they get no laugh, they go in the reject pile. If they get a big laugh, they go in the yes pile. And if they get some reaction, they go in the maybe pile. And if they don't have enough, then they'll pull from the maybe pile. If they have too many, they'll do it again from the yes pile. So I was the only woman in this group frequently, and my jokes wouldn't necessarily get huge laughs. And
Mm.
then, and so I started to be like, I'm just not good at this. And then as time went on and more women started to call me, there'd be another woman there. And these are all anonymous, so these men aren't doing this on purpose at all.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then we started noticing that when they would read the joke, my joke, sometimes the other woman would laugh. And then I'd point and be like, that was my joke. And then I would laugh and she'd be like, that was my joke. And then what we realized is if you were a man and you wrote a joke that appealed to everyone, it would get through. And if you're a woman and you wrote a joke that appealed to everyone, it got through. But if you're a man and you write a joke that kind of has a male perspective, and I don't mean sexist, but just comes from more of a
Yeah.
male perspective, it also gets through. But
Mm.
if you're a woman and you write a joke that comes a little more from a woman perspective, it gets rejected, even though the
Mm.
audience is male and female. So it was
Yes.
just kind of this systemic, like, oh, I became aware of this built-in thing because there were all men laughing at it and we're judging by who's laughing, that it was gatekeeping. And so I was like, oh, this is a confidence thing, right? Like it doubles down, like, oh, no, I'm not good at it. But no, I'm not good at it for an all male, as good for an all male audience as a man
Yes.
is good for an all male audience.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so
And
that's why I
again,
reckon,
it's much bigger than that. It's the whole women aren't funny thing. It's the David Foster Wallace, the water we're swimming in, the paradigm, like that people have just kind of, if it's about women, it's not really that interesting. Hence
right.
why women's health doesn't get that much investment into it.
That's right. As a
You know what I
migraine
mean?
sufferer, all right,
Yeah,
I can't
100%,
even.
100% endometriosis, the whole gambit, right? And it's kind of like,
Right.
oh, they're them. Yeah, right. So it's not either taken as seriously and then on the other side taken as funnily,
Yes.
uh, if it's to do with the trope of woman,
That's right. And it
right?
just, yeah, but also there's a half of women in there. So eventually, as the numbers of women increased, the jokes did get more balanced
Yes.
and they did do well, and they
Yeah.
did as well, and of course the ideal is to like write the ones that hit on all level, but also like sometimes it's fun to write one that speaks to the women, right? Just like jokes Seth can't tell, which are awesome. That is, if anyone watches Seth Meyers and Jenny
Mm.
Hagel and Amber Ruffin will tell the jokes that Seth can't tell that relate to LGBTQ community or Black community. Like it's great to right representation really matters more than anything. So in
Yes.
improv, I guess just to translate it back to what started this, it's why it's really important to play with an affinity group. Not only an affinity group. I mean, you can if you want. Nobody's saying you can't. But what you will gain from playing from it, and people are always like, why do people have to play with all the, it's like, because then you see what's funny because it's funny and not just because you're the only, right? It
Yes.
takes that
100%.
barrier away from your confidence. And playing with all women is when I learned about like being fully supported, being fully
Mm.
seen. Like it just really changed that whole thing. And then you're more confident. And back
That's
to what we
right.
were talking about earlier, then you're more
Yeah.
confident when you go play
Yeah.
with an all male group, and you're like, Mandy came here and she made a joke that what is it? Oh, somebody was drunk and had lost a leg, and she made a joke about not having a leg to stand on. Is there an
Uh,
Australian saying
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
missing a leg?
Oh, yeah, or legless if they were drunk.
Yeah,
They could be
legless.
legless.
She
Yeah,
said
yeah,
he's
yeah,
she
yeah.
said, "Oh, I guess he's legless." And it didn't get a laugh, And then afterwards she was like, "You guys don't use legless," And,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was like, "But any Australians watching totally got
Yeah.
that joke."
They would have got the laugh in Australia.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so guys, just for context, Mandy is also a creative director of her own improv company in the Gold Coast in Australia. Blah, blah, blah improv. And absolutely beautiful person. And if you're in that area, go to her
Yeah,
improv
she's
classes.
lovely. She's the reason we went to Gold Coast and really helped make that whole part of our trip work, and was really top-notch hospitality on her part. It was incredible. She just made it such a wonderful time. And then we got to host her here because she got a grant
Yeah.
to do an intensive here and then in Chicago, and then came over and visited us, which was delightful, and
How
played with
awesome.
us.
I heard how bloody cold it was too. So,
She, well, yes, she was in Chicago, which was very, very cold. It wasn't so
yeah.
cold here, but cold to her. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't even know things existed. She bought a heating vest. Like that
Yeah,
was,
she
she
mentioned
was,
something. I was like, what? Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
lived in
yeah.
Chicago for a long time. I was like, I just put a lot of layers on. But I love
Yeah.
the idea that there's now technology that just totally keep you
Yeah.
warm.
Now she is a very practical person.
She is.
Okay, so again, I guess in summation of that, it's kind of again we're going back to the answer of life, people. Holding two opposing things at once. So have an
Yes.
affinity group so that you can double down on what you're good at, and then you'll have the strength to go into groups of difference. But also go into groups of difference so that you can appreciate that everyone's brain works differently, how they
Yes.
find ideas, how they play those ideas, So again, like it's kind of that the spice of life is doing both of those things.
100%. 100%. And
Yeah.
when we first started doing improv teams at our theater, which we don't currently do, but when we had a bunch of teams, we did like the breakfast club method and tried to mix people up. But it is harder too when you're learning to be able to embrace that. But it's also you're going to
Yes.
teach you the most. You're going to learn the most. But yeah, we found that like the teams started to like split, and like there'd be a group that thought more alike, and then they would
Yeah.
sort of reject the people that were different. But
Yeah.
I think now I'm just very excited about there's a lot of people complain about the younger generations, and I will tell you there's so much that they have that I would have loved. And one of those
Mm.
is supporting people who are different, understanding what you can learn from people who are different, being more open-minded to people who are different. And I think that translates into improv as well.
Yeah, 100%. Um, yeah, I think it's natural though. There's a part of your brain, the primitive part that's about belonging and that. So you do tend to be attracted to people who are like you,
Yes.
So that difference thing, it is, you just got to make that little bit more effort, you know.
Yeah. And
But the
like,
thing
what a
is,
great time to talk about it with
you get more
bad,
development.
right. Like Bad Bunny. Like
What?
playing at our Super Bowl, and everybody, our country, my country, right, is so divided that people are like, Spanish, I don't get it. I'm offended by it. And it's just like, or you could watch this beautiful
Yeah.
display of a culture. Oh, like so much to learn from watching that, whether you speak English or not, and
Mm,
watching improv in foreign languages
yeah.
is one of my favorite things to do, and how much you can learn. When we went, John, my husband and I, he does the visuals for Ruby Rocket, and we traveled together, and we went to um, Spain together, and we went to a show in Spanish in Mallorca, and we were there in Mallorca to see my family. It was a very meaningful visit for my family, celebrating my mom. But of course, when we arrived in Palma, I'm like, we got to go to the Improv Theater in Palma.
Yeah.
So we get there, and they're like, they speak enough English at the door, and the performer's working the door herself, of course. And she's like, I don't know if you know, but we don't speak, any English in the show. And I was like, I am totally cool with that. And especially probably because they were Spanish, right? They're so extra
Yeah.
expressive.
Yeah.
Like, we could totally
You
follow the
got it anyway.
stories.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Did not need it to be in English. And like how much you learn from enjoying and experiencing cultures, and fighting that urge in ourselves to just bond with the people
Mm.
who are like us only.
Yeah, 100%. It reminds me of there's a solo improviser. His name's Jacob, I think something. He's in Europe somewhere, but his whole solo improvisation is just sort of like gibberish and physicality.
Yeah.
And awesome, like a master of doing that. I might put it in the description, guys, because it's really
Also,
worth seeing.
yeah, in Vienna, there's two women, Anna and Ursula, and they do an entire narrative. I had seen solo, I'm not solo, but silent duos before, but usually it's a series of scenes that
Right.
aren't necessarily connected. They did an entire silent narrative that was mind blowing. It
Wow.
was so good, so funny, so easy to follow. At the beginning, they play these little scientists, and they say they're about to do this experiment, and then they do the whole show in silence, and then they come out at the end and they're like take a survey of what percent people thought they understood,
Wow.
and then people are like 100%, like because you don't miss a
Yeah.
thing because they're so good. So anyway, yeah, there's just I would hope that if you're doing improv, you are wanting to learn and grow and go beyond
Hmm.
what's comfortable. And I'm always walking that line, like, don't push yourself. This is like the danger. This is why I don't like guru culture, right? Is
Hmm.
like don't let anyone put you out of your comfort zone in terms of who you are as a person or feeling like
Mm.
violated and like boundaries that you have in terms of content or physicality, right? Like, of course, protect yourself and no is a powerful and welcome word in improv too, right? Don't let yes and be used to push you out of your personal
Mm.
safety boundaries, but artistically I
Yeah.
would hope if you're doing improv, you're willing to step into some discomfort and play with people that may not think like you and try things that may not feel so comfortable to you. I mean, the biggest note I got from Mick Napier, he does this diagnostics thing where he like just watches you play and then he'll just give you a heart-wrenching note that cuts to the bone. And for me, it was like surprise me, huh? Like, geez, just give surprise me. And I was like,
Wow.
yeah, right. And then now I'm obsessed with surprises in improv. And like that was, like I said, that was uncomfortable for me because I felt that offering something surprising might throw off my scene partner,
Yes. Yeah.
right? But maybe it might delight your scene partner.
Yeah.
And by doing it, I had to learn from that. And I'm just using that as an example of a time I was really pushed out of my comfort zone, amongst many, many times. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think hopefully, if people are, feeling like improv is a craft, or they're to that point where it's a craft that you're honing and mastering, yeah, I think you can't not do that. You have to put yourself out of your comfort zone. That's where the growth is in the craft.
You can
Um,
play piano, right? There's like
yeah.
kind of the people who play piano really technically perfectly, but they're guarded emotionally. And then there's people who tend to play piano really emotionally, but they might be a little more messy, right? Like
Yes.
those are the
Yeah.
same things that we have to really try to hone the shadows of our strengths.
Yeah. Speaking of me being in the workshop, I just wanted to ask you about two things that happen as in exercises. So one of them, and please tell me this was your workshop, because it's gonna be like it never happened.
Well, I'm
I,
clearly
I
going to say it
I'm pretty
wasn't, whether it
sure
was or was.
I'm pretty sure it was. There was like a funny walk thing. So
Yes.
somebody did it, and then you had to heighten, heighten, heighten. So each person coming across had to sort of heighten that and do the funny walk, like do it similar
Yes.
to that person, but then add an element to it of some sort.
Yes.
Am I taking crazy pills? Okay.
No.
So talk to me about what's that doing? The mechanics of that, like what is the objective of that exercise for you as a teacher? What do you feel
That's
that
one of
is?
my most favorite exercises. We call it copy paste. I'm sure it has a million
Okay,
names.
cool. Copy paste.
But yeah, it's called copy paste, and you have everyone in a circle, and one person crosses the circle with a sound and motion. Right? This is the one you're talking about. Yeah,
Yes.
somebody crosses doing a sound and motion, and they walk towards someone to take their spot in the circle, and then that person watches that sound and motion as best that they can. Then they try to imitate it and walk across and give it to somebody else. And then the instruction that I always give is that you want to honor that offer as much as possible, but you also don't, you want to allow it to transform because your body is different, your voice is different, the way you move is
Yes.
different. It's going to transform. So if I pass across to you and then you cross to somebody else and it's different, I don't want somebody to try to correct it and be like, well, this is what Stacey did. You take the thing that was most recently given to you, and you allow it to transform, but at the same time, you don't force it to transform. So if I came across saying spaghetti and you accidentally said Pischetti, people shouldn't correct it back to spaghetti. But also, if
Yes.
I come across saying spaghetti and you say Pischetti, somebody shouldn't come out and say, I'm a rooster. And that's always
Yeah.
my example. And for
Yeah.
me, that is about fully receiving an offer from somebody, taking it on and embodying it as best you can with your body, which will naturally yes and it, but
Mm-hmm.
without trying to be funny or clever and totally disregarding the offer and making your own, which
Mm.
is what frequently happens. And the metaphor I also use for that is a brick. You have a brick, and like the first offer is the first brick. And a lot of times what we do is just throw another brick on the ground. And then we have the ground scattered with bricks.
Bricks. Yeah.
And that's a lot of work and it's a lot of bricks and it's really confusing if we want to
Yeah.
get to the next level. Where do I put the second brick for
Yep.
any of these? So it's about that first cross is the first brick, and then you embodying it and moving across is the next brick. And then we want to add the next brick and always be fully present to receive the offer before we start to add to it, and then we add to it. So it's about allowing things to grow and change but not forcing them to.
Yeah. We're back to the tree.
Yep.
I mean, that's
Yeah. I mean,
there's
that's
the
really,
offer. I'm going to transform it into wreaths and garlands, but I'm still honoring your original gift.
and that's why I think I fully believe that improv is a craft and that it can be learned. And it's not a secret spiritual journey that only a few gurus hold the
Mm.
key. It's very simple at its core, which is give and take, give and take. That's what all communication is.
Yep.
That's what all it is. It's just hard to do. It takes
Yeah.
a lot of practice. Like it
Yeah.
sounds so easy, but for me to be fully present, right? We always jump to
Mm.
yes and, but we skip so many things before yes and. The first thing is
Interesting.
arriving. The second
Yeah.
is being present there.
Yep.
The third is being open and ready. Like the
Yep.
fourth is making the first offer,
Yep.
then hearing and fully receiving that offer. Then you say yes. Like yes is not yes and I love that we
Mm.
always love to talk about yes and because that's it's so funny and so human for us to be like, it's all about yes and like that's my moment to shine. It's when I've said yes to their thing and I've added my funny, clever thing. And it's like, or is it about listening first? What are you yes anding? What are you yes
Yeah.
anding?
Yeah.
Oh, somebody's got to make that first move. So that comes before yes and somebody needs to fully receive it
Mm.
before they say yes to it.
Yes. Yes. Uh, I'm interested and I'm gonna be devil's advocate here.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna
I'm
say
excited.
I'm gonna say is yes and though more global? Is it just a case that people are making it less global than it actually is? So if I arrive and I am present, I'm actually saying yes to the moment, as opposed to yes to the offer of the other person. Da, 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 da.
I
Is
100% accept
is that
that. I
something?
100%, yes, I love that. It's not how I usually hear yes and explained, right?
Yeah,
I
and
usually
me
hear
either.
yes and
Yeah, yeah, me either.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So yes, it is. And how wonderful to think about it. Like say yes to the space you go to, right? Walk into the
100%.
room. What's the stage? Can you play? What can you play with? You know, when Susan Messing came to our space, we have this giant 17-foot ladder that there's no great place to store. So it's like right behind the tech booth. Who was
Yeah.
climbing that folded up ladder against the wall and yelling for the tech to hold her butt? You know, Susan Messing.
What?
Like Susan Messing came and like saw the whole room, right? And
Yes.
yes, anded the room. If you, I'm a
Yes.
huge fan of Big Frida. I don't know if you've ever heard Big Frida, Queen of
No.
Bounce. She's like, she's a musician dancer out of New Orleans and
Okay.
strongly recommend and it's bounce music, which is basically twerking. It's just like it's not
Yeah.
necessarily like a thing you'd put on in the car. It's the most fantastic party music there is.
Right.
And Big Frida is this like 6 foot gender fluid, black person from New Orleans and always does spectacular openings to her shows and then travels with a troupe of dancers like very much in like the African dance tradition and they all twerk, male and female. And the reason why I bring them up is every time they enter a room, they're like, what can I do in this room? So they'll
Mm,
twerk on speakers, they'll climb on
mm,
speakers, they'll climb into like open windows and like twerk like their physical ability to play in any space and twerk
yeah.
on like really fast. Like this is twerking as like a
Yeah.
dance. And it's I just want everyone to know that everyone thinks of twerking. It's just like a sex. It's an incredible thing to watch somebody twerk on fast rhythm for 2 hours, right? It's
Wow.
athletic and powerful and fun, and they get a bunch of white people in Portland up on stage like shaking their asses, and like uptight people
That's
who just
comedy
watch
too.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually Portlanders watch music like this, like, very good, and to watch
Yeah,
them
yeah.
get on stage and be twerking.
Yeah, love it. Love
And
it.
I was introduced to it by Tom Hill and Amy Shostak, two improvisers who were visiting, and they were like, "You got to come to this." Um, but I just love how they attack every room, right? They
Yes.
start with like, "What is this space, and how can I play with this space?" They arrive, right? That I agree that yes and is bigger than just like I got this offer. How can I yes and this moment in this room and the people in this room and how they're
Yeah.
feeling in this moment, and it physically in the context you're in, and also like culturally and socially.
Yeah.
Like I did the Third Coast Improv Festival, started 2 days after Trump got elected this last November, and or a year ago, and everyone was worried. Like, how is this gonna feel? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
in the South, but Nashville's, more blue, but like, everyone's sad. Everyone's very upset.
Yeah.
And the very first show I saw there was Blaine Swen and Erica Elam, who are world-class improvisers. Blaine is from Improvise Shakespeare, if
Oh
you are
wow.
familiar with them. And
Mm-hmm.
Erica is from Baby Wants Candy. Like
Oh
they are
wow.
both,
Yeah.
yeah, like top,
Yeah.
the
High
best,
caliber.
amongst the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
And they do this musical duo, and they ended up like playing this really quickly, this little kid who had a bunch of imaginary friends, and his mom, and he was not even getting along with all of his imaginary friends, and he had one named
Oh.
Mr. Bumpkiss, and Bupkis, and then she or yeah, it was Bumpkiss, and she was, she was the mom, and she played all the imaginary friends, and then toward the end of the story, he's like, I wish they were real, I wish you were real, to his mom. And we
Wow.
like, and then we're all like,
What a
no, like
reveal.
it started with I miss you, and then we're like, no, don't, and then he's like, I wish you were real, and then we're all weeping.
Yeah,
And
wow.
Erica crouches down, she looks at him and goes, she goes, you know what, sometimes stuff happens that just fucking sucks, and you know what, you gotta go be around friends, maybe go see a show, like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
the most
Life and arts.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
cathartic
yeah.
moment. So we're
Yeah.
all laughing, crying, and then when you laugh and cry, you like
Yeah.
snot, like everybody's just
Yeah.
a freaking mess, standing ovation,
Yeah.
and like again, they met they met the
Yes.
time. They met
And
what needed to be. Yes, 100%. And then we
that.
didn't have to worry about. And then the reason why I mentioned Mr. Bumpkiss, she goes, "We're not going to let any Mr. Bumpkiss trump us." Yeah, and we're all like, yeah, like freaking out. And then we all were allowed to like really
Mm.
enjoy and cherish the festival and the time we were together. So yeah, I love that what you just said. I think it's absolutely perfect of what I'm trying to communicate is like, yes, and isn't just like you gave me this content and now I'm adding this other content.
Yeah. I think people tend to, because I mean, when you think of yes, even the word or yes and, it is very global. And people don't like ambiguity. They want to create a definition or a meaning of something. They're always trying to chunk down on it and be specific about, but that means the, so people, I think, just have this, yeah, so long as I say yes to my partner, and it's kind of like, yeah, improv is built on this global thing of yes and, as in diversity, as in space, as in relationship, as in emotion, as in people, as in premise, as in ideas. So it's kind of, I think, just an opening up to, rather than like my problem with people going, oh yeah, it's not just about yes and, is that they're arguing on the level of the definition of yes and as a mechanical process, which to me it's a state.
A
Like it's
hundred
a
percent.
state of being, you know what I mean?
And to add to what you were saying, I also think people hold on to it because it's so powerful in cultures like here in the US, and I'm sure
Mm.
many, human nature to say, for adults to say no, but, right? And my idea versus
Yes.
your idea versus
100%.
Yes, yes. So I get it in like I get its power in that way,
Yeah.
but I also want to make sure we emphasize exactly what you just said, which so beautifully, about all of those things, arriving and being open and being ready to accept. And that took me so long. Like I spent a lot. I spent like $6,000 on classes in Chicago in 4 years and learned the most from open court, the jam.
Mm, interesting. Really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, the clue's in the word open. Um, but yeah, it's interesting because it reminds me when you said about the dancers, the twerkers, it reminded me of I did Hobart Improv Festival just last year, and it was beautiful, really lovely community, very small, sort of like their first one. But Jim Fishwick, I don't know if you've met him, but he was
Jim's the
there.
whole reason why I got to tour
Love him,
Australia. Yes.
love him, right? He and
Is it
I had the
them? They,
honor.
them? Is Jim they, them?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
Jim is yeah they them. I had the honor of playing with them in the show called The Lighthouse, which was like the people that created the workshop, so the festival. It was their signature kind of thing, and it was really cool because every night of the festival there would be two lighthouse keepers, and at the end of the show, one would leave, and the next day that person's in the lighthouse, and a new person would come into the lighthouse. So just like a duo. And I was in the lighthouse. Someone had left, and this was the next day. Jim was coming in. And talking about someone who really embodies this yes and of the space situation. I'm in the lighthouse, and I've watched other performers do this lighthouse as I've been in the festival. And this amazing stage in Hobart is built around like the edge of a massive rock. So they've left the rock as the back of the stage. It's a
Yes.
like
Yes.
massive rock. And the lighting looks amazing on it. Like just it's just gorgeous. Jim was the only improviser who entered the lighthouse instead of just walked on stage, climbing the rock at the back of the stage
Yeah.
and then came around. And I was
Yes.
like, this is next level. Yes,
Yes.
and this is kind of like one of the things that is not my forte because I am online a lot. So I don't have that stagecraft. So he has got massive stagecraft, and part of that stagecraft, I think, is exactly like you said. I've arrived, what's presenting, what's present. Oh, there's a fucking big rock.
Yes.
I've just walked on. I'm just like, knock, knock. I just and
Amazing.
pretty much all the improvisers did. He was the only one who scaled the back wall.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Well, and online too, we did a fundraiser during the pandemic, during the lockdown, where we did a 24-hour La Ronde.
Wow.
So everyone would do two scenes and we'd bring someone in from the waiting room and then they do a scene and then the person who had already
Fantastic.
gone with it was so fun because I have a hard time with more than two people online. I know there are ways and they've developed a lot, but it was just so great. And because it was global, we were able to do it for 24 hours because a lot of
Wow.
people were in their time zone.
Yeah.
So it was really, really awesome. And Jamie Moyer, who is originally from Detroit, has done Second City. You've probably seen her have cameos on all, Community and all kinds of shows. But she's part of that Detroit Second City group. That's Mark Evan Jackson, Mary Beth Monroe, Keegan Michael Key, all those guys. And Sam Richardson, yeah, and Tim Robinson. And anyway, she's the one that like she can make Mark Evan Jackson, who is the most straight-faced person, like break. So the two of them were matched together. They were nice enough to do this fundraiser for us. And we and let Jamie Moyer in, and she is sitting cross-legged with candles and
Wow.
like this thing over her head and like tarot cards and
Yeah. Yeah.
and like, yeah, she was like, I could, the rest of us are just in our
Yeah.
pandemic designed studios, but she
Yeah.
made her own set that like set
Yes.
up her character. And I was like, that's brilliant. Like, we all could be doing that more than we do. And we want to leave it vague or whatever, but also what a fun opportunity to just have a bunch of people come with their worlds and then see their characters
Yeah.
sitting in their worlds instead of a blank slate totally, but then improvise from these different characters and put them together. It was really, really fun.
Yeah,
But
sounds
that's awesome.
amazing.
And Jim's now the artistic director in Sydney, yes?
Yes, yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah.
That's so
Good
great.
on them, man. They're the best. So I just wow, this is like going.
I sorry,
It's
this is
like
my ADHD.
it's like a murder map. You know how like they put up the picture and then they got these like things go over. Yeah. I'll ask you one more thing about that because I want to move on because it's just too much as usual. So I'll ask you one more thing about that ex like one of the exercises you did. So
Yes.
in that warm up, at speaking of arriving, being present, whatever, you did some noodle thing or something. What's
Oh,
that?
our
Yeah,
check-ins.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So talk me through that, just for people
Uh,
if they want this kind of boundary thing, like how does it work?
yeah, I
Yeah.
yes. So whenever we have a class, a workshop, a green room moment before show, what we do is what we just call check-in, and everyone says their name, their pronouns, if they care to share. We do it every time, even with groups that are really familiar with each other, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people change their minds. And then we add access needs, boundaries, and what genders you're comfortable playing. So access needs is anything physical that you may want to share, and it can be permanent. Such like I can't hear in my right ear. It can be English is my second language, so I may need you to repeat something, or I may respond completely differently than you expect because I didn't understand you. So any kind of physical needs like that are considered an access. If I get down, I can't get back up, so I'm
Yeah.
not going to get down.
Yeah.
And then boundaries are content boundaries. We are established that we're an anti-racist, anti-homophobic, anti-fatphobic, anti-transphobic, all of those things, so that people don't have to say that every time.
Mm-hmm.
But if people have boundaries above and beyond, then they can share those. For example, if I just had to put my dog down or my dog just
Mm.
died, I may be like, I'd really prefer not to be
Don't want to do
any
that scene.
scenes
Yeah,
with
yeah.
sick dogs today.
Yeah.
Some people might want to because it's cathartic, but maybe you're not that person. And so you can set that boundary. Or somebody's been in and out of hospitals, may not want to do a hospital scene, whatever. So
Mm.
people establish those boundaries. And then how what genders you're comfortable playing. And this was something that specifically came up because our trans population in our classes has increased dramatically over the past couple of years, and specifically with students getting misgendered in class all the time. It
Mm.
starts to feel like if they're always in doubt as the gender that they've already had to pretend they were for a long time, they
Yeah.
don't feel like it. They just want they just want to play what they are for a while. So
Yeah.
it started as that, but then we found that a lot of students were like, I don't feel comfortable yet playing the opposite gender.
Yeah.
And like a lot of non-binary people are sharing that they'd like to play non-binary characters purely for the sake to introduce non-binary characters
Yeah.
into improv because they never are. So
Yeah.
so that's become a really powerful, lovely tool. So those are the three things that we go over. And I just want to say a lot of people are afraid to do this because they're like, I'm never going to be able to keep track. Like if everybody has a bajillion,
Yeah.
that hasn't been the reality for us.
Yeah.
People share them when they really need to, and we don't have each person listing off 10 things they don't want to talk about, you know? And so it's worked really, really well. And then people are like, oh, somebody gives me a boundary around they don't want any guitar music. All I'm going to do is want to talk about guitars. And it's like, when you know you can't swear because you're doing a kids show, you just develop that muscle not to
Mm.
swear for that show. Like you can do it, and the more you practice being considerate of boundaries, the easier it is. So those are the things, and then it can take forever if every single person is going like, my boundaries are the same boundaries, and I don't have any access need. The shorthand of just met, nooch, all, which
Right.
is my boundaries are being met, my access needs are being met, my boundaries are neutral beyond the established ones, and I'm willing to play all genders. And so met, nooch, all is just the shorthand. No pressure to rush. If you have those needs, say them, but met, nooch, all keeps us flowing. And then it became somebody said met noodles by accident in a class, and then that became wet noodles. So wet noodles is is the kind of all clear
The
sign.
sign. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
that I do. But yeah, just like, and then also I make sure that people know that there's no scene in any class, any workshop, any show that they can't say no or leave if they're
Mm,
feeling, there's no reason to feel like traumatized, violated as a person. So
yeah.
saying no is 100% acceptable. And even in these auditions we just did, I was like, please know that you don't know each other. This is just an audition. You all came from other places, and if something's awkward, we will admire you for your bravery,
Yeah. Awesome.
even in an audition. And then we also have timeouts.
Yeah, I was gonna
So
say you can
yeah,
do the timeout,
you
right?
call a timeout. Everyone cheers. We cheer because it takes courage to call a timeout because you might feel
Great.
like you're being negative or you're slowing down the momentum, but it's always welcome. So
Yeah.
those are our kind of safety things, and we have an extremely diverse community considering it's Portland, Oregon. So in of the diversity we have here, we exceed the
Yeah.
population's
The national
percentages
kind of
at our theater.
average. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
not the
yeah.
national, but the Portland average. Like the US, I used to always be like, oh God, they're doing so great at huge theater in Minneapolis. Like they have so much more black presence there and da 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 da. And then I finally looked at the demographics, and the national percentage is around 13.6 or something. And Minneapolis has 16, over
Yeah.
16%.
Yeah.
So, and we are 3.5 in
Wow.
Portland. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you
So I
got
was
got to
like,
look at those
okay,
numbers.
yeah, yeah. It's helpful to not beat yourself up that you're not
No. No.
you got to match again. Yes, and your environment as best you can.
100%. 100%. What's the context?
Yes.
I wanted to, while we're just, and I just want to make a quick mention of this because it stood out to me when I watched one of the podcasts that you went on. Speaking of diversity, because that's where that's going. You were doing a director's course at Second City, and they came straight out and told you women can't direct. Now, this was a while ago,
Yeah, this
but
was
this is a good,
2007.
okay, so it's not that long ago.
Yeah, I guess
It's
it's
not
getting
that,
to be 20 years ago, but not long ago enough. I was once an extra in a movie in Chicago, and it was supposed to be in the 50s, and they were dressing us in the 40s. And they said the Midwest's always 10 years kind of
right.
behind everywhere else, the coasts. So I think of that often, but yeah, for sure. Yeah, they said, yeah, they just said, and I'm in the directing program at the time, and they just said, we'll never hire a woman to direct the main stage. Every cast needs an alpha male, and an alpha male never listened to a woman director. And like now, it's like, if you don't support the woman director, sure, but like, how about you cast a beta male who can act like an alpha male if those things are even real? Or how about if they don't listen to the director, they get fired? How about
Yeah,
that? Like, how about you just get the back of the woman director? How about that?
yeah.
But yeah, and they stayed true to that. So they did not
Wow.
hire a woman director until I think 17 years after I left, something like that, 15 or 17 years after I left. So I had been directing shows at my own theater, for over a decade and a half before they finally did. And so, and it's only been one, it's been Jen Ellison. Anne Libero will point out there was maybe someone in the 80s, one woman who directed a main stage in Chicago. And I'm like, well, when you're looking at 108 productions in 65 years,
Yeah, it's not great, the
how
numbers
much
on
weight
that.
does that is that really worth defending?
Yeah,
But yeah, it's been
yeah.
Jen Ellison, who's incredibly talented and wonderful. But in Chicago, she's the only one. I think they've had more in Toronto because Canada's better than
Mm.
us. But but in Chicago, yeah, Chicago's main stage has only had Jen, and I don't know how many she's directed.
Wow.
Not that many.
Wow. And watching that too, I think that was the same podcast where you sort of said at some stage you did come to the realization that if I'm going to want to do this stuff, I'm going to have my own thing. Like
Yeah, I had to
I'm not
build
kind of
I had to
fitting.
build the playground to
Yeah.
play the way I wanted to play. And
Yeah.
that's when I had, when I was young and when I was 28 and when I started doing improv, I was getting divorced and I was like, that's when I thought I might want to start my own theater. But then I wanted to like make sure I had pursued my own individual dreams first. And that's when I went to Chicago and started pursuing that. And then I was like, felt like I had done grad school and an internship, assistant directing a show. And then I was just like, and then they said that to me and I was just like, all right, I think I'm done here and I'm ready to go
Mm,
back and open my own theater. But, there's definitely like grief around it. And there's times where I'm
mm,
like, "Oh, gosh, what might I have been able to accomplish if my life weren't 30% creative and 70% administrative because I had to run my own theater, you know?
mm,
So
mm,
there is sadness around it. There's so much I love about it, and you never know, right? Like there's all of that. But like in down times, I definitely feel angry and sad at times that I've had to shop for ketchup so that I can direct
mm,
improv. Like I've had
mm,
to fix refrigerators and mop floors and wash toilets and serve drinks just so I can do what I want to do.
mm.
Yeah.
It's just you can't even begin to talk about how some parts of the population have been behind the eight ball in that sense, opportunity wise, structures that are not there to support people who rightly should be directing and shit.
Right.
Um, However, you have like a phoenix from the ashes come through to then become a female leader, and a director and a leader, and that's where you are now. I mean, you as hard as that is, like you are most probably an inspiration to a lot of women.
It's been pretty awesome to have like there's been some women in India who they came over here with their all male troupe and I watched them be sort of steamrolled by their all male troupe and then they were so excited to see the how many women are at my community and then the videos we have on the Curious Comedy YouTube, they watch it to get inspiration from the
Right.
women on our stage and our I mean and representation is the most important thing. Like there are times that I don't even notice that we have all women and one guy in our cast, or sometimes all women casts, and we don't even make a big deal about it. We just have a lot of women, and other places in Portland are still struggling to have even numbers, even though they care
Mm.
and they're trying.
Yeah, of
They
course. Yeah,
don't,
yeah, yeah.
but it does. It just makes all the difference, and it's really helped when we've brought Ty Malik Coleman out, who is a Black trans man teacher from Baltimore, and I want everybody to bring Ty Malik Coleman everywhere. And he has helped both represent the trans community and the Black community because it's like you can't if you promote people too quickly to get them on the stage, then they have that experience we talked about where their confidence is robbed,
Yes. Yeah.
especially if they're set ahead of their path, right? So you
Yes.
can't force main stage level, like, highest
No.
level representation. So the
No.
way that we have resolved it is by having festivals, which we created the
Mm.
Chroma Festival. We sponsor the Northwest Black Comedy Festival, which is mostly stand up, but he's doing improv now too. So we have two festivals for people of color at our theater. We bring out Ty Malik Coleman for like a month. We've done that twice and we would do it again in a heartbeat. Like, and you see it in the month Malik is at our place. Black audience members come back
Mm.
and they
Yes.
thank Malik for representing them up there. And then they're excited and they want to bring their kids so their kids see people up there. So, I mean, really, the best thing you can do is find ways to make sure groups are being represented on your stage, even if it costs you money.
Mm.
That's the only
Yeah.
way you're going to be able to. You can't just be like, even scholarships aren't enough if people don't see themselves up there. Who's
Mm.
going to want to take that scholarship, even though you're offering it, if they don't see you're creating space for them? So, it's been great to be, that's been the best part of being a woman leader is like being
Yes.
surrounded by so many awesome women. Like, I just love our community so much. One of the best groups in Portland right now is an indie team that formed out of several generations of curious players that are all women. It's called Ladies Trip, and
Cool.
they're amazing and they're awesome. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I can't remember who said this, so I'm not going to be able to give attribution, but somebody said to me recently about that, about seeing, you know, people going up and saying thanks for representing us. I can't be it until I see it.
Yeah.
This
And
is
I
this is
can't feel
what,
totally safe or welcome
yeah,
if you haven't shown anyone up there being treated,
yeah,
you haven't shown how I'll be treated to me, right? And that I will
yes,
be genuinely supported
yeah,
in the way that I hope to be until I see that, right?
yeah,
It's not safe until somebody can show that it's safe.
yeah, 100%. And I think even though there's that sort of grief around how you were treated, I think, if that hadn't have happened, man, like you wouldn't be the innovative leader you are, and how you're changing a scene, that's pretty amazing.
Well, two of my closest friends, one a stand-up, one an improviser, got married and they met at Curious and they created Maxine, who's one of my best friends. She's 4 years old. And like those are the things that wouldn't exist
Yeah,
had I not created this space.
100%.
There's so many
An actual
friendships.
person wouldn't
There's an
exist
actual
without
person.
you.
Yeah. And she's freaking awesome. Like she really is. They ask me to babysit and they're always like, "Hey," I'm just like, no, you're not asking me to babysit. You're just like making a play date with me and Maxine because I just love her so much. And she's so fun because they're so fun. But yeah, I mean, the beauty of like creating a community and with all the dark side that there is to it is like how many marriages, friendships, babies, have come out of this space. And the story of just to go back to, I love all the themes of our conversation. It's been lovely talking to you, is like, oh, if someone could see the story of Curious Comedy, and like we've had memorials there, we've had radical Black Muslim meetings there, we've had historical meetings of the neighborhood there. We've had, a bajillion shows, obviously, there of all kinds, poignant shows, funny shows, improv shows, sketch shows, stand-up shows, but so much more. And it's a very magical thing to me is what the walls have seen and what the walls have
Mm,
held and what the walls there have made possible for Portland community and people who've traveled and been a part of it. We just had Jenny Hagel out and like she had the best friggin' time. And it just makes me really, really happy. I just love hosting people and sharing the city and sharing the theater and sharing my home. And like that part is definitely, I think, unique to running a theater, isn't it?
mm,
So.
mm.
And
I
I've
I
and I've
love,
been able to leave, right? Like I've had
yeah,
opportunities to tour and to travel, which has been absolutely essential to maintaining my happiness and sanity.
yeah, of course. Um, I also love the name curious. For me, curiosity is like one of the most important words we can have in life, in improv, fucking anywhere. And so like for me, I've always said, the opposite to fear is curiosity. Like the minute you're feeling fearful, if you get curious about it, it kind of breaks that. I did have a quote that you had about fear that I really liked as well. I just wanted to bring that in. Um,
Can't wait to hear it. What did I say?
so what did you say? It was something about fear. Yeah. So you said something about, not verbatim, but you said something about fear is an indication of excitement and investment. You're about,
Nice.
you're excited, you're about to invest. You're pretty smart too, though, aren't you? Really?
I
So
mean, those
yeah.
are literally words I had to tell myself, right, from my stage fright. That's for sure where those things were born, right? You care and you want it, otherwise you wouldn't bother. But yeah, like watching a puppy, right? Like overcome fear is usually luring them with curiosity, that's how you
Yes.
overcome it. And I'm just a
Interesting. Yeah.
very, very curious person. I mean, it's why I think my main, show is about a detective. I'm very,
Yes.
it's about
Yeah.
curiosity, puzzles, like I'm very nosy and have had to learn how to manage that.
Yeah, but it's really just curiosity. I mean, really, it's
It
not no,
is. It
it's
is. It is.
curious. That's what it
Yes,
is. Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
But there's times where you need to let people, take their time to tell
Is
things,
there
even if
though? Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I just love to
yeah.
learn. I have to always
Mm.
be learning and growing. Like that's the ultimate. It's never like improv has never been about gaining status as a teacher or becoming famous as an actor, or making money, or else I would have done something else, right? Like
Yeah,
for
totally.
me,
Yeah,
it's about constantly
yeah,
learning. And in TJ and Dave's book, Improvising at the Speed of Light, they have a really beautiful metaphor of improv being like you think you're gonna like you walk through the door and on the other door is improv, right? Like and you're learning it and you open the
yeah,
door and then you get in there and then you see there's a whole bunch of other doors. And
yeah.
then,
Right.
and it's just like an infinite amount of doors. And I
Yeah.
love that. And having to become a better person to do it. And
Mm.
I
Mm.
don't have kids, but my sister has, raised kids, at my all my siblings, but this one sibling has approached her parenthood similarly, where like she sees her kids doing something and then realizes that she doesn't necessarily love, and then she realizes, oh no, they're doing that because I'm doing that, and then she has to grow so that she can model the
Interesting.
behavior that she wants instead of just tell them to be different. And I feel like her path of growth through her kids has been very similar to my path of growth through improv, is that every time I hit a wall, I'm like, oh no, I gotta work on myself.
Yeah. I mean, for me, improv is the best personal development I've ever done. And I've done a
Yeah.
lot of personal development, but improv is, yeah, by
Yeah.
far, because it's
Yeah.
totally embodied and you're working in relationship. That's the best way to start
And it
getting into problems. Like get in a relationship.
totally.
If you want personal development, get in a relationship.
And yes, and I guarantee to everybody, if you're listening to this and you hear my voice and you're like, I hate this short form game or I hate this exercise, guarantee you 100% that that's the one you need to do the most.
100%. 100%. And again, just be curious. That's curious
Yeah.
that I don't like that, isn't it?
Yes.
That's
What's that
interesting.
say about
What's
me
that
that this
about?
upsets me? And basically it's making you probably uncomfortable in some
Yeah.
way. You're not good at it for some reason, or you feel, you're not good at it for some
Yeah.
reason. And like, great. Like, following the fear is for sure the most mantra, like for me in all
Mm.
the improv lessons, because I've had so much fear around it, that it's always been like, uh-oh, musical improv terrifies me. Better do it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Uh-oh, stand up is horrifying. Sketch is terrifying. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know that stage fright would. I thought you have stage fright and you get over stage fright. But
Yeah.
no, your brain finally slices like, okay,
Yeah.
improv
There's another
is
door.
okay. Yep. Yeah,
There's
exactly.
another fear door as well. Let me tell you that one. There's another one. Yeah. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I've got two more quotes that I liked.
Okay.
So one was, I learned how to have my wits about me even when in fight or flight.
Yes. That's
So
right. It
how
doesn't
did you do that? How did
just
you learn to have your
practice.
wits about you? Right. Okay.
Just
Interesting.
practice. You can't, and this is why like I'm trying, we worked with police um to try to get them to practice certain situations, and we had their bosses watching them do the scenarios, because when they would train with each other they're just kind of like broy about it, but then
Mm,
the potential jeopardy of being, just of being embarrassed, and also the
yes.
security of their job triggered their fight or flight. So you have to train
Interesting.
in fight or flight. You
Yes,
have to.
definitely. Yeah.
And the fear isn't totally gone ever for
No,
me. It's just
no.
that I am familiar with that space.
Yes.
and can
Yes.
live in that space now much better. Yes.
Yeah, and I would agree because I was a professional musician, like a singer for 20 years. That was my job. And people would be, oh, how do you get up on stage and do all that, all the time? And I'm like, the only difference between you and me is that when I think I'm gonna have a heart attack because I'm so anxious, I know I just won't. Like
Right.
I'll just go out there and like that's the whereas you buy into it, you believe that you're gonna have a heart attack, so you don't get up there. I mean
That's right.
that's like so it's
And
the similar thing.
you start to think like, oh, because I think I'm going to have a heart attack, even thinking that is going to cause me to have a heart attack, right? For
Yeah,
me, that's what the stage fright
yeah,
loop was. Like, oh, my hands are shaking. People are going to see me shaking. And that's going to
yes,
make me shake even more, right?
yeah.
And it was Kevin Dorff who I was lucky enough to meet because he had friends here in Portland. So he came out a bunch early in my improv career. He wrote for Conan, he's a Second City guy, and he's the hot dog guy in I think the pilot episode of 30 Rock. And I was doing some nervous behaviors and he was like not having it. And then I was like, well, what do you do? You must have had nerves when you first got on Second City, and you must have had nerves when you first started writing for Conan O'Brien, and you must have had these nerves. And he was like, yeah, I just know they're there. And I have my cup of coffee and I read my paper and I was like, you just do fucking self-care? Like, but it was super helpful that it's like
Yeah.
not fighting it,
No,
right?
transforming it.
Just knowing it's there, letting it be
Yeah.
there, and doing rituals that calm your nervous system. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it was a really transformative conversation.
Yeah. And for some reason, we think that because even, like bloody hell, I can't count the amount of times I've been on stage as a singer, right? Thousand probably. But there'll still be the gig. There'll still be the gig that the fears behind that, like it doesn't go away. But we have this weird thing that, once I'm good enough, that's not going to happen anymore or something. And it's like, no, 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 that's part of it. Like part of art has always been that tension.
Yeah.
Like tension is part of art. Like you can't
And it's
get
excitement,
away from
right?
it.
So when you're a little
Yeah.
kid and you're like excited to go to the amusement park field trip, right? You're going to be up like all night and you're not going to be able to sleep and you're kind of trembling, with
Yes.
excitement.
Same
And
thing.
it's the same energy. And so that really helped me. And I want to hear you sing sometime now that I know
Oh
this.
yeah.
I love learning this about you. That's
Yeah.
really awesome because it scares me a lot still singing.
Well, I've seen you
Um,
do some musical improv. It was great.
oh,
Online.
did you? Oh,
Yeah, because
I didn't
no,
even know
I
it
don't
was
know if you
there.
know, but you stream stuff from your theater.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like pe people can go on and watch
Yeah.
it. Like I don't know.
I forget. I forget. And it's certainly not all great. But thank you. Yeah, we've got such
That
a
was
great
good.
group. But yeah, I think it's just about doing it anyway. I just told a corporate guy who was, at that gig I just did, and he was like, "What do you do if you're afraid to public speak?" And I was like, "You just have to do it." And he's like, "Oh, great. Your advice is just I have to do the thing that terrifies me." And I was
That's
like,
right.
but start doing it in environments that are smaller and
Yes.
safer,
Yeah.
right? And that are going to be supportive, and then slowly
Yes.
grow and evolve and have the confidence to do it in larger environments. And he was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, fine. Okay, fine."
Okay, I'm cognizant of time now. Can you believe it's been like almost 2 hours or something?
No, I can't. Did you have
Yes.
one more question or is that it?
I've
Or
got too many. So I'm going to invite you
okay.
back for part two. If you're
Okay,
interested in
great.
coming on again, I would love to have you on again and go
Great.
through because we've still got Ruby Rocket, we've still got the
Yes.
business side of it, we've still got. I'm going to put this quote in here now because it was an interesting take on it. I've never thought of it in this way. But you basically said talent equals functioning in an altered state. So people look at something and think it's like talented, but it's pretty much this, what we've been talking about, the
Yeah.
ability to
Yeah.
function in an altered state. So just can you does that make sense? Can you
Yeah,
talk?
it's pretty much exactly what we've been talking about. And it's really
Right.
just practice. Uh and there are some people, it depends on who you are, right? There are definitely people who feel very entitled to be on stage and don't have fear around it, and good on them. But
Yeah.
and that can be seen as talent, right? But it to me, it's just like a road that we're all on learning improv, and we're all at different distances down the road, and we pass each other and get stuck and go backwards sometimes. And so when you start in particular, I think you go to that first class and maybe you're more nervous and you're more new to it, and you see somebody in the class who's just killing it, and you interpret it as like they have talent and I don't have
Yeah.
talent.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
just
Yeah.
don't believe in that kind of it factor. And generally, even if that person has no actual training, they probably have a parent or a sibling that they've just
Yes.
already been doing this kind of
Doing
thing
their
with. And
acts
it's,
too. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Like my
Yeah.
sister was the performer out of the two of us, and she just entertained my dad constantly,
Yeah.
from childhood, and they just had that rapport. And then the reason why it took me a while to realize, like, the reason why I'm a more support player is because I was her sidekick, right? So I was
Mm.
already able to be the more grounded character to the other person. That came more naturally to me just because I have more practice in my family dynamic. So yeah, that for sure it's important to me that people not ask if they're worthy or not. And I did that for, that's why it's important to me. And that's, I didn't start really improvising until I was 28. And it wasn't until I was 30 where I was like, it doesn't matter. Why do I keep wondering if I'm worthy of doing this? I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So that question is
Yeah.
nothing but an obstacle in my way. So how about I just assume I'm worthy of doing it and
Yeah.
stop trying to
You're gonna
prove
save
that to
yourself
myself and
time.
everyone else? Yeah. How
Yeah.
about I just
That's
do it and stop questioning, it. So that was like
yeah.
turning 30 was a big point of like, how about I just get out of my way and do what I want to do? And like, there's plenty of people who work in entertainment who aren't that great at it. And there are plenty of incredibly brilliant comedians I've met in my life who have never done comedy for a second. And they're doctors and accountants and just
Mm.
hilariously entertaining, wonderful people. So that whole idea of, do I have it? And my
Yeah,
friends
that
say I'm
X factor
funny.
thing.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that's an illusion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a good place to end it, guys. That's, we are worthy.
We are worthy. We're
We
all worthy.
we're all worthy, guys.
Yeah.
Which is a great place to end it. And I don't want to end it. I mean, I could just keep going, but yeah. So I'm formally inviting you back onto the show to continue the journey because I still want to hear about Ruby Rocket and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I
Yeah,
can't
that would
believe.
be my pleasure. Oh, the one thing I wanted to throw in is, speaking of nerves, I just did Ruby Rocket for my family, which I had traveled all
Oh,
over the world and never done it for my family, and was shaking
w-
like it was six
wow!
months
That
into
another
doing
fear door.
improv. Yep.
Another fear
Yep.
door. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I meant to
So how did
mention it.
it
But anyway, it was
go?
all they were awesome. It was awesome. The theaters were awesome. Like, I did two shows in the Boston area, one in Boston, one in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, where my dad grew up. It was beautiful. We'll talk more about it next time. But thank you so much I'm glad to come back because talking to you is lovely and wonderful, and I've had a great time. So thank you for having me, Lindsay.
No worries. Thank you for having me, Stacey. Thanks for
Well,
having me
thank you for
here.
having me.
Well,
No, thank
no, but
you for
really,
having
it's
no,
me that's
no,
thankful. I mean, it's me
no,
that, I
I'm the most thankful.
okay. All right, because I don't want to take that from you. Okay, you're the most. So I'm gonna bow and say
Great.
I'm not
I
as thankful
win.
as you. Okay, I'm not
Great.
as thankful as you. Okay, right? Yeah. Okay, guys, that's what happens when you got two improvisers together. Okay,
That's it.
so like and subscribe. Make sure, guys, you check out. We got heaps of people on there. But this is the most important one. Okay, you've watched the most important one.
I'll
Okay.
be I'll be on your show as many times as you want,
Yeah, yeah,
Lindsay.
yeah.
Keep saying nice things to me.
Yeah. I'm just making that happen, guys. All right. See you guys. Thank you very much for joining us on this, and we'll be back for part two. Thank you very much.
Yay.
Thanks, Stacey.
Thank
Thanks.
you.